everyone. Welcome back to the Tuned and Toned podcast. I am Dr. Jen Kabbas, again here with Coach Brian Chambers of Big Bend Strength and Conditioning. Our last video, or one of our last videos, depending on the order we post, was about off-season prep work in the gym. Today we're going to talk about preseason. So last time we talked about in things like weightlifting and athletics, typically they have the off-season, then the preseason prep or peaking, and in season, which for us would be the performance run. So we're going to talk about preseason today. So this is all happening preseason here after we've already worked on the high liability movements, the things that are real major weaknesses that we need to build up. And again, there's other things that I would do in preseason, like nutrition prep, resting, all that sort of stuff that I normally do, and practice, of course. But today we're just going to talk about what's going on in the gym, what I typically do. So I think you said in athletics, preseason's about how long?
Preseasons are usually our largest chunk of the program. That's usually about 12 weeks. But that's because our end season is one day.
Right.
We only have one day where we have a performance.
Right.
Depending on the level that you are. Like if you're further along in the elite level, then you may have to compete more often.
Right.
But for the most part, it's going to be one time, 3 times a year.
Yeah. So very different than, for example, I'm about to go into a month-long theater pit.
Right.
Where I'm playing, 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Very, very different.
Yeah.
So for me, preseason actually is significantly shorter. It's not going to be that, 6 weeks or whatever.
Right.
It's probably going to be more like 2 or 3.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that for me is that because of my age and my experience level and the fact that I know more what I'm doing in the gym as it is, I know about how long I would need to recover if I did a high liability movement with the hands and something went wrong.
Yep.
So depending on how high risk, and I hate using that word because we're, again, not doing anything high risk here, but if I'm going to do a heavy bench, heavy bench, and something, God forbid, were to go wrong, my spotter didn't catch something and I twisted, I don't know.
Right.
Theoretically, it'd take me about 4 weeks to comfortably recover and practice and get ready. Now, ideally, that's just not happening.
Yeah.
But,
No.
we do what we can.
Yeah.
So anyway, once we get into the preseason period, for me, that looks like a lot of assessing what parts of the body, what major muscle groups are most likely to, when they give out in performance, cause me discomfort or pain or dysfunction. So that's really what I'm assessing here.
And we want to just get those as strong
Yes.
and have as much endurance as possible.
Yes.
So that's basically like your major structural muscles. So kind of the last season that we talked about, we're going to be focusing mostly on our weaknesses.
Right.
This one, we need to hammer in what is going to be used the most, so that we're actually practicing that, so that it doesn't fail on us early.
Yes.
Right.
And we talked a little bit last time about, we're still introducing those structural muscles in the off season.
Yep.
But that's more about establishing the baseline for this preseason. So they kind of cross over into each other that way. So for me, in playing position, especially in a pit, it's going to be seated. Like, it's not a solo performance where I'm standing.
Right.
That's going to be, again, so as that deep muscle there, transverse, that kind of cuts across the body, helps keep you upright. The low abs and the obliques still. The glutes and the hamstrings.
Yeah,
Those
which I
are-
think you kind of found is surprising to how
Right.
important it was for your playing position.
Absolutely.
But having those be a strong support for your hips as you're sitting, and then having a strong deep abs,
Yes.
so that your playing position doesn't start to warp when you
Right.
get tired.
Right, and it always seemed to me in my past when I was having issues, it always seemed to me like, oh, you have to hold yourself upright, like suck in and put
Right.
forth effort. And it's the stronger I get, especially in the core, the more I'm finding, no, I don't have to work.
Yeah.
I do the work in here.
Right.
And then when I'm sitting with my clarinet, I'm just upright.
Yeah.
And I'm not fatiguing.
Right, exactly.
And like you were saying, the glutes and hamstrings, I was very surprised that entire rear chain, how much it affected my position. And it's partly hip stability, and partly it feels like those muscles, since they are still large muscle groups, are supporting everything in the low back and in the core that's keeping me upright. That's just extra support.
Yep.
So
then-
those are big.
And then kind of the last thing for your playing position is
Right.
your lats.
Right. The lats right in here. We see the, big bodybuilders do this one, right? Where they're winging that out. But those, and especially in combination with the pecs, if you're in a playing position and you see people kind of give out here,
Yep.
that's, usually over tightness in the front delts is what that is. Front of the shoulders. Weakness in the pecs and weakness / extra stretching and elongation, not healthy lats. So theoretically, if we build those up, then we create a much more stable structure
Right.
for our arms to hang off of.
And same thing with the lats and having the pecs working as well. When you're in your playing position, you don't end up going into
Right.
this, which
Right.
is overemphasizing squeezing
Yeah.
the shoulders back and then up, and then you maybe
Right.
get some funky shoulders.
Yeah. And we
Or
do see
lower
that.
back.
We definitely do see that
Yep.
too. Yeah.
So a lot of that is just reinforcing your playing position and making
Right.
sure that that is going to be as strong as possible.
Yes.
And then the other kind of end of that is like eventually it is gonna start to fatigue.
Yes.
And there's nothing that you can do about that.
Right.
You can just put off how far that's gonna be.
Right.
And then when it does fatigue, what do you go to? Right? So it's not
Right.
about having just
Yeah.
such a good A game that when it goes down and you're in your B game, you don't wanna just give out as well.
Right. And you said, oh shoot, what do you go to?
Right.
What do you go to?
Right.
And that's not just in terms of what position do you go to, but also in terms of what else can you use to keep yourself upright muscularly and structurally,
Right.
Which gets into a whole other ball of wax I don't
Which
think
is-
we have time for in
yeah.
this video.
We'll get into that a little bit, but that's a
Yeah.
whole, that's something I could talk about for a long time.
Right, and that's actually would probably be interesting because we have very different viewpoints. You're coming at it more from muscular and I'm coming at it more from bones, ligaments, and positioning.
Probably very different viewpoints.
Very different
Yeah.
viewpoints, and I don't disagree with either, so. But that's really a lot of what the preseason forming looks like is,
Yeah.
just to reiterate here, make the things that are going to give out when you're in your position, make the things that are gonna cause you the biggest problem as strong as you possibly can before it starts. Especially knowing that in season is usually so chaotic if it's a long run that you're
Right.
not gonna have time to get to the gym as much as you want.
Exactly.
So dancers, if you got hip problems, make your hips, whatever your weakness muscle is in your hips, go after that, make that as strong as possible without doing anything high risk.
Right.
That sort of thing. Vocalist is probably actually up here again, that upper body stuff we were talking about,
Yep, same thing.
that sort of thing.
Still working in the low abs.
Still
and
working in the low abs, always working in the low abs, those don't go away. for
Pretty
anyone.
much, yeah.
That's
Pretty much don't,
across
never
the
need
board.
those.
Right. Pretty crucial.
Yeah, that's pretty much preseason. So to sum it up, work your playing position just all the time. It needs to be as strong as you can possibly get it.
Right.
And then don't neglect where it's going to end up when that does fatigue.
Right.
And then the last thing is, I think that's it.
That's
Yeah,
really
so-
it for preseason,
Yeah,
aside from the stuff that's done outside the gym. Take care of yourself, don't push risks, like this is not the time for that. It's just about get yourself as strong as possible and as ready as possible for the run that you know you're probably gonna have.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. Let's wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you. You can find me, again, my name is Dr. Jen Kabbas. You can find me at www.tunedandtonedperformance.com. It's tuned with a D and toned with a D. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Tuned and Toned Performance. We also have our YouTube page. Just type in Tuned and Toned Performance. We come right up. And thank you, Brian. I'll let you do your plugs.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Coach B Chambers. You can find the gym, Big Bend Strength and Conditioning, on Instagram and Facebook at those handles. And then our website is www.bigbendsc.com.
All right,
Cool.
thank you.